Latte for Keenan?
That's me.
Hey, you're
Yeah.
buying a car online on AutoTrader?
Really? But unlike other sites, you can start online, test drive with a local dealer, then finish online or at the dealership.
Really? Wait, are you
Yep, it's key.
able to finish in person without starting the process over?
Really. Your info stays with you every step of the way.
Cool. Enjoy.
It's Keenan Thompson. Buy your car online on AutoTrader. Really.
In 2005, director Peter Jackson and star Naomi Watts gave the world a heartfelt and terrifying revisit to the island that wants to shred you limb from limb.
In 2026, we're going to try again, Brad. Let's see what we get.
The film, for the second week in a row, is King Kong.
The whiskey is SHÀNG East and West Whiskey.
And we'll review them both. This is the eighth wonder of the world, the Film and Whiskey Podcast.
Welcome to the Film and Whiskey Podcast, where each week we review a classic movie and a glass of whiskey. I'm Bob Book.
I'm Brad G.
Brad, I don't know if we've ever talked about the 2005 film King Kong before, which is shocking because it's one of those movies that there was probably a brief period of my life where, if I was really honest with myself, this was like my favorite movie. I loved this movie when it came out in 2005. Let me tell you how much of a movie nerd Bob Book is, Brad.
Mm-hmm.
I used to just write movie reviews on my family computer, with no outlet to publish them. I would go home and I would write in Microsoft Word, like my Roger Ebert review of a movie. And I remember, this is a momentous one for me, Brad. I got home from seeing King Kong. I'm 14 years old. And I remember it was the first time I swore in a movie review because I said, this is about as damn perfect of a movie as you can get. And that was like how I ended my review. I was so proud of myself at 14, Brad. So when I say I'm so happy that we have organically landed on the 2005 King Kong, I mean it, Brad.
All I could imagine as you told me that story was Ryan telling the camera, yeah, I just opened up a Word document for Creed and he just writes his thoughts in it. It's not even connected to the internet.
Creedthoughts.com/creedthoughts. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Dude, I remember seeing King Kong in 2005 in the theaters. Like, my family had loved The Lord of the Rings. We went and saw King Kong. I remember walking away being like, oh my gosh, this was a stunningly good movie. I freaking loved it. And for some reason, like, this is like pre-internet Brad. Like, we had internet at my house, but I don't know if there's any young people listening to this show. Back in 2004, even as a 14-year-old, we didn't just browse the internet.
No.
Right? Like, you didn't just get on the internet and scroll. Like, there wasn't scrolling. There was no such thing as an up-down scroll.
That's it. Yeah, there was browsing. There wasn't
browsing.
Scrolling.
There wasn't scrolling. And so, like, I just remember somewhere, maybe I read it in the paper, like an actual physical paper, that it didn't get the best reviews. I feel like I remember a lot of people being like, it's not Lord of the Rings. And I always was like, I don't know. I really liked it.
Yeah.
And I haven't watched the movie since. And Bob, when I tell you that I watched that movie last night and just had my mind be absolutely melted, I freaking love this movie, dude. It is stunningly good.
Folks, welcome into Film and Whiskey. I've already said hello, but if you're new to the show, we don't typically start the show by being old fogies and talking about reading physical, tangible newspapers, but we're talking about a movie set during the Great Depression. So, the newspaper is all you're going to get. See? I will say, folks, if you Folks, if you have not been familiar with what we're doing this season on Film and Whiskey, we're taking 10 Stone Cold classics, and each time we watch a Stone Cold classic, at the end of that week, Brad picks a random movie to pair that movie up with. And then at the end of that week, I pick a random movie to pair that movie up with.
We don't just put all movies into a randomizer and pick from it.
Wayne's World? How did we get here? And so, perhaps not randomly, Brad decided to pair last week's film, 1933's King Kong, up with the 2005 remake.
What a coincidence.
How did we land on this one, Brad?
Dude, we're off the rails, man.
I can't wait to talk about this movie, Brad, because I have many, many thoughts. I wish they were as glowingly positive as they are for you. And once we get to a certain point of the movie, all my comments will be glowingly positive. I think for both of us, it just depends on where that point in the movie starts. So let's jump in, Brad. I think the best place to start here is with our first segment of the day, which we call Brad Explains.
Brad's gonna give us the movie plot with only 60 seconds ticking on the clock. So let's go ahead and hear your take with this little segment that we call Brad Explains.
Brad Explains is the part of the show where Brad breaks down the plot of the movie that he has just seen, often for the first time. I'm going to go ahead and basically call this a first-time watch, Brad. If it's been 2 decades since you've seen a movie, you're basically watching it from scratch at this point.
100%.
And, you know, it's so funny because I watched this movie a couple times, at least twice in theaters. Bought the DVD, watched the hell out of that. And it's been a really long time since I've sat down and watched this movie front to back. Like, it may have been 18, 19 years now since I've seen this movie front to back. I've watched the last 45 minutes on TV like 10 times. If I'm scrolling and I see King Kong's on and it's in the last third, I'm like, yep, I'm watching that. And so it has literally been almost as long for me seeing the front part of this movie. And I've held off because I remember not thinking it was the best part of the movie. And boy, oh boy, do I have thoughts on that. But before we get into that, Brad, it's your turn to spoil this movie. I don't really know how much spoiling we can do because it's the same movie as 1933, just it's gotten the hobbitization effect where it's like, let's take one small thing and expand it further than it needs to be expanded. Peter Jackson was doing a speed run for the Hobbit trilogy here. But the beats of the plot are still the same. So I'm interested to see, Brad, where you go with Brad Explains. You have 60 seconds on the clock and go.
King Kong is a film from 1933, but also a film from 2005. And the 2005 edition follows Carl Denham, who is a disgraced filmmaker, as he tries to escape the police and his producers for a film he was supposed to make, to go to Skull Island in order to film his next epic. He convinces young Ann Darrow, played by Naomi Watts, to come along with him for the ride. On the way there, she falls in love with the writer Jack Driscoll. As they get to the island, they realize that things are not what they seem. Anne is captured by the natives. She is offered as a sacrifice to Kong, and then an expedition is mounted to go rescue her. It takes a long time and a lot of human death, but once they bring her back, they end up capturing Kong.
5,
and they take
4,
him to New York City,
3,
where he climbs the
2,
Empire State Building and gets
1.
gunned down by aeroplanes.
He sure does. My boy Kong.
Dude.
One of cinema's most tragic deaths. It's up there with Bing Bong in Inside Out. It's really just Kong and Bing Bong. That's it, man.
I don't think you're allowed to say those back and forth a lot of times, Bob.
I don't know, man. I don't know. It's somehow less offensive than the natives in this movie are. So I'll stick with it, you know?
I will say, fun fact, it's 2005 and we don't talk about islands that have things no white man has ever seen.
But boy, oh boy, do we make up for it with some of the depictions of folks in this movie, Brad. Listen, before we dive into the 2005, I want to give kind of like a final wrap up on 1933, because I think watching this movie really solidified a couple things to me. I said this at the end of the last episode. 1933's King Kong is maybe the purest, most perfect, earliest distillation of what the adventure movie would come to be. It is like it's the ur text from which all texts flow after it. And I don't know if certainly not going into last week did I realize that, but even coming into this week, I think it finally clicked for me the extent to which King Kong as a story is kind of a minor miracle. It is a distinctly American cautionary tale. It's like an American folk tale of sorts. Like, it could be up there with like an Aesop's fable kind of a thing. There is like an actual moral and lesson to it, but it was completely concocted for a movie. There was no pre-existing story of Kong that the original movie was adapted for. And I find that incredible because this feels like a story that has been in our bones as people for millennia. And yet this was a story that was just invented by some guys in Hollywood in 1933. And so as I go into 2005 Kong, and I'm watching it remake beat for beat in a lot of places, the 33 version, the first time they kind of cut back to the expedition and you see them starting to cross the log. I'm like, it's the log. Kong's coming. He's going to turn the log over. And I think that's when it clicked for me. Like, this is not like a canon event. Chris Nolan just did the Odyssey. We all know the story beats of the Odyssey. And I came into King Kong with that same level of familiarity with the beats of that story. And I think it's almost more, what's the word? Miraculous. That some dude in California in 1933 wrote a story that is kind of as ingrained in us as Americans as something like a Homerian epic.
Yeah. The original Kong has all of the elements of what it means to be an American. Like, you are going out on a grand adventure. You are trying to help and save someone. You are rude and bombastic and a little bit racist along the way. And you end up destroying something.
Something beautiful. Yeah.
You end up destroying something that you are afraid of because you don't understand it. And I'm like, if that's not the
America,
definition
dude.
of America, then I don't know what we're doing, man.
I was trying to look up a little bit about like what makes King Kong a distinctly American story. And I think, it's interesting
And by
because
look
the
up,
question
you meant you were asking ChatGPT.
No,
or are you more of a Claude guy?
I asked Google, my friend, and I clicked links and I read words on the internet.
Wow.
The bar was here. I'm right here, baby.
Speaking of old fogey things to say, I clicked on a link.
I clicked links. I think there's two things you have to keep in mind, which is like, how do we view this story of Kong through an interpretive lens, which is kind of what we're talking about. Like, it's a distinctly American story because at the end of the day, it is about that impulse that America has to take something beautiful, try to commodify it, and then ultimately kill it in the process. Like, that is the story of capitalism and King Kong.
Dude, I saw a video talking about the commodification and destruction of the New Year's Eve New York like party.
Yeah.
And how the Smoking Deaths in LA sign is like a more authentic, real party on New Year's Eve when it switches to zero.
I think I sent you that video. It's such
Did
a
you
good
send
video.
that to me?
Yes,
It's a great video.
I think I did. Yeah.
Anyways, keep going.
No. And then I think the other lens is what made King Kong such a popular movie in 1933. Aside from the fact that like everyone's poor, this is the best way to get entertained for a nickel. Like that's an obvious one. But then like, I guess the question I was asking myself is, as I'm watching the 2005 Kong and I'm watching the amount of humanization that Peter Jackson gives that ape, I'm like, you know what? I don't know if audiences sympathized with Kong to this extent in 1933. If you're a down on your luck person in the Great Depression, and probably a little racist, let's be honest, you're going into the 1933 Kong on the side of the expedition, on the side of the people who are fed this image of this giant foreign beast that they capture and take to New York. And despite what a big shot he is, as Carl Denham says, he was the big guy and the little guys got him in the end. You're cheering because like it gives you hope as someone who's struggling financially that like we can still rise up and conquer something here. We can conquer something like King Kong. And so it's so funny because I've now been so ingrained with the Peter Jackson version that I only sympathize with Kong in this scenario. And I feel like if this movie came out in 2026, we'd be getting like, why have we wokeified the Kong story? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it is such a shift from who you would have been identifying with 70 years prior.
Yeah. I mean, if you look at the history of America, we have gone beyond our apex as a nation. And we've now hit a point where we have a lot of self-referential, self-shaming, self-hatred. And so to view this from a cultural lens, yeah, you're going to look at this and say, well, obviously the film producer, director from Hollywood is a scuzzbag, and he's not going to go out there and just, just film nature and it's going to be like, no, he's going to murder an ape. He's going to murder natives to this island. It's going to be this brutal thing. And then he's going to try to make money off of all of that. I personally don't think that that's a fully accurate picture of who we are as a nation, but it doesn't surprise me that 2005 Peter Jackson from New Zealand is like, nah,
Well, and I don't know that was necessarily his intent. I think his intent is just like, there's a real tragedy here, and I want to emphasize the tragic elements of this story because it is this kind of big Greek tragedy of a movie. You kind of mentioned Carl Denham as a character here, Brad, because I think that might be our in to talking about the differences between 33 and 2005. And I think in a lot of places, the fact that Peter Jackson expanded this story and shifted your allegiance as an audience member is a huge improvement on the 33 version. And I think in other places, it's like, I don't know if I love these choices. And Carl Denham's one of those. I mean, first of all, I think a lot of people for a long time have said that Jack Black is miscast in this role. I remember reading a magazine interview that he did back in the day. This quote has stuck with me for 20 years, Brad. This is what lives in my head for 20 years. I wish I could find it because I would send it to you as verification that this is a real thing. He said something to the effect of like, when I give movie performances, I'm always trying to give the spicy nacho cheese. And he said, my performance in King Kong was more like bringing the mild cheddar. That was what he said about himself. Now, watching it this time, I actually don't think he brought the mild cheddar. I just think he's the wrong guy for the part. If that, like, and also, setting that aside, in the 33 version, Carl Denham is a blowhard who's not self-aware. But the movie doesn't necessarily disagree with him. Like, the whole premise of the movie is the Beauty and the Beast story. The guy had it made, King Kong had it made, and then he fell for beauty, and that was his undoing. And so at the end of the movie, he can stand over Kong and be like, welp, told you so. And that's the end of the movie. And in this movie, they make him like a way bigger antagonist. He's actively doing harm to people. He's putting people in harm's way on purpose, not just self-serving. But like out of malice, it seems, at some points too. And so I'd love to hear your thoughts on the differences in the Denham character and then also the Jack Black of it all.
Even as you were talking about Denham as a character, it clicked for me that one of the key elements for Naomi Watts' character is that she's unwilling to sell her soul to a debased form of entertainment to become a debaucherous dancer. And yet, that's exactly what Denham tries to draw her into, to like sell her soul for the commodification of the thing that she loves, which is King Kong. Like, what a great bit of writing, dude. I am going to give you a very hot take. Are you ready for this?
Pro Jack Black?
I loved Jack Black in this, dude. I really think that his version of spicy cheddar cheese nacho whatever, Asian zing, wing sauce, like whatever he thinks of that is like Nacho Libre. Like he wants to bring this ridiculous version of himself into every role that he does. And I think that a restrained Jack Black is actually a pretty daggone good actor. And I think that, I mean, who knows? If we were back on our director miniseries that we were doing and we were rating Peter Jackson, I think I'd actually give him high marks for directing Jack Black as an actor, because I really think he draws him down, keeps him grounded, and says, hey, you're not cheddar cheese Jack Black. You're a real human being who's a scumball, but isn't ridiculous. Like, he takes himself seriously. And I think that's what I like most about the character, is that he does take himself seriously. You still get little Jack Black isms throughout the movie, but overall, I think it's a restrained version of Jack Black that really works well, because it allows my wife put it really well. Jack Black has crazy eyes. Like, if we're talking about How I Met Your Mother, like the hot crazy scale, like he's got crazy eyes and he's not hot. And yet it's those crazy eyes that you can see are always scheming and trying to think of a way out of the mess he's gotten himself into. I think Jack Black is like a 9 out of 10, like A- performance here.
Well, I think part of that is the way the character's written here as versus how it was in 33. Like, he's just a much more shisty guy here, and a schemer. You use the word scheme. I like that a lot. Whereas, again, I think in the first movie, yes, like he's a shady character to the extent that everyone's like, where are we going? Why are you taking us to an island? But he's portrayed much more as kind of like a blowhard. And so I am interested in, like, did you think what they did with the character here? Because there are some interesting character changes from the original in that makeup of the expedition kind of crew. So what did you think about those character changes here?
I kind of feel like they took the original Denham character and split him in two, and they made the Jack Black role and the Adrian Brody role. That like with the character of Jack Driscoll, the writer, you know, who's not in the original movie, you kind of get the slightly brave, thoughtful version of Denham that you do see in the original 1933. Like he's brave. He goes on the adventure. He's fighting off all these animals. Like he has a little bit of, I don't know, that adventurousness in him. And you take that out and you put it with Jack Driscoll, then you just allow Jack Black to be the scumbag kind of guy that he is. So I think that by taking those two, that one character, and kind of splitting them into two, I mean, I don't know, would you say that that's fair?
Yeah, because in the 33 version, the guy she falls in love with is the skipper of the boat, whose character in this one is be French.
Yes.
That's his whole character. And then they also add in the character of the leading man in the movie, Bruce Baxter, who is played by Kyle Chandler here. And, you know, I think a lot of these additions are interesting. I don't know if they necessarily make the movie better. So, like, Kyle Chandler, first of all, at this point in his career, just an impossibly good-looking man. Like, real matinee idol. He looks perfect in the 1930s. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. Dude, the moment when he puts there's a young, like, ship rat that is on the ship, and he goes in at one point and colors all over his posters that Kyle Chandler has in his room. And Kyle Chandler walks in and he's outraged, but then he sees one where he drew a mustache on it, and he holds his comb up and starts doing like poses with it. One of the most stupidly funny moments of the film.
It's great. And then to your point, yeah, they add all these characters in the crew. So in the original, you really only get like the Chinese guy. And in this one, there's a Chinese guy, but then there's also Andy Serkis. There's Jamie Bell as the ship rat, you call him.
His
kind of mentor as well.
You missed it. Andy Serkis, whose defining characteristic is that one eye is being held closed. The entire movie.
Not that he is missing an eye, just that he's going, Unbelievable. Brad, all right, let's get into this. The first 50 minutes of this movie are unbelievably bad, like super uneven. And I'm talking everything from like the way they introduce characters, the entire scenes that they'll just cut away to, like that Kyle Chandler scene. It doesn't serve the movie at all. No other characters are in that scene. It's just a cutaway to Bruce Baxter being dumb. And then you'll have Peter Jackson like changing film stocks and doing that like every now and then in Lord of the Rings, they'd cut away to the orcs and you get that kind of slow-mo that's not really slow-mo, but it would make like streaky
it's like
patterns
blurry
on the screen.
Yeah.
They do that with all of the natives in this movie. There's a lot of weird slow-mo that doesn't belong. And I felt like until they got to the part where Ann Darrow is being offered up to Kong, this movie didn't know what the hell it was doing. And I was terrified that it would never find its footing because I remembered the first part of this movie being bad. I didn't remember it being this bad.
Bob, you are so far off base on this.
No, I'm not, dude. It's really bad.
I'm not going to say that it's like perfect. The end of like the last 2 hours of the film might be perfect. The first hour of the film's like fine, but even better than fine. I'd give it like an 8 out of 10 if I was just grading that first hour. And the reason I say that is because you have an opportunity. This is what you always ask for, Bob. This is the extra 5 minutes with each character so that you just get a little bit of a vibe for who they are. All right? You get that with like 8 or 9 of the main characters. That's 45 minutes.
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't need that with 9 characters, man.
But you get it. And Bob, I agree.
Sure do.
This movie could be 2 hours and 30 to 2 hours and 40 minutes long. So let's say you cut out 30 minutes from this movie. You could cut out 20 minutes from the first hour and 10 minutes from the second 2 hours. And I think that would be a fair amount to cut from each act of the film. But I'm not going to let you ding the first hour because you get those moments. You understand why the crew would go in after Naomi because he gives you a short 10-second clip of her dancing on the deck with the other sailors. And it is the most charming. And yes, it's the little weird slow-mo like Peter Jackson thing. It's kind of streaky, but it's endearing and charming. And you get Bruce Baxter playing with a comb, pretending that it's a mustache. And you just, by the end of that first hour, I have 8 people that I'm like, I'm on board with these people. And it reminds me of like watching Rogue One, where at the end of Rogue One, everyone's dying. And I'm just like, I don't give an absolute rip about any of these people because they were so lifeless and had no character development and just uninteresting people. But here in King Kong, we've got it in spades, baby.
We've seen it done way better, I guess is my argument here. And,
sure.
And like, I know I'm not going to get any argument out of you, but I started thinking about, I said the Kong narrative is like this American mythic tale. And there's really only a couple stories in the 20th century that can match it in that way. And one of them is the Japanese counterpart, Godzilla. And this is why we see them paired up with each other in movies so often. We just did this a couple seasons ago. We watched Godzilla -1, which is very similar to 2005 King Kong.
Mm-hmm.
And you get that sort of like rapport building with all those different guys on that ship. The young guy, the professor, the actual like skipper of the boat. And you've got like your wounded protagonist and his wife and their little 2-year-old. And it's like they create a family atmosphere throughout that movie in so much more of an earned and realistic way than cut to Andy Serkis, the cook, who's dipping his shaving cream in someone's porridge and going, just rubbing it on people's faces. It's ridiculous, man.
It's incredible. I was here for the ride. Like I said, it's not perfect. It drags a little bit. There was nothing in it that made me go, dear God, this is horrific. Nah, dude. I was there. it's a little bit cheesy. It's a little bit dragged on, but overall, I enjoyed it and I felt connected to the characters. So for me, successful first hour of the film.
Boom. This is almost maybe the best place to take a break because I want to talk about nothing but the technological achievements and how good the second 2 hours are. I mean, maybe this is a good place to give quick disclaimers or thoughts about the Islanders in this movie, because I think that weirdly, it might be more racist in the way that it depicts them than the 33 version was. Because in the 33 version, like, the people are clean and the people seem to have like an organized civilization where every now and then they just need to like offer up a sacrifice to Kong. And that's like the barter system of living on the island. Yeah. And in this movie, they bring in like, there's a lot of weird sort of like hoodoo going on. The people are filthy. I will say it looks like they come from many ethnicities. So we're not just like lumping one group of brown people into it here. It's many groups of brown people. But I'm not going to say I was offended by the way that they were depicted in this movie, because like that's not for me to say. But I was also like, this seems like we're trying to manufacture extra thrills or extra scares out of this when we're trying to get to Kong. And if anything, the Islanders felt like an addition that didn't need to be made in terms of their characterization.
I would disagree on a certain element in that they're on screen for 4 minutes, maybe. I mean, it is a very quick amount of time where they're wandering through what the big change for me is the fact that they make it like ruins. Like, this is the ruins of an ancient civilization that the natives are like clinging to an old way of life, even as it falls down around them. And so they wander through the ruins. They don't see anyone. And then they have some great like horror pieces to it. They get rescued by the skipper. And then you don't see the natives the rest of the movie. And so for me, it felt like they were a little bit more of a set piece to move on. And there's no further like commentary on their culture or, you know, I don't know. At the end of the 1933 one, they're like waiting and they're like guarding the door from them. And then they're all working together to keep Kong back. And it's great. It works. I think that
are we supposed to is it implied that they just like massacred all the village people in this movie? Because like the next time we see the expedition people, they just have machine guns. Yeah. And we go back to the village and there's no villagers left anymore.
I think the implication is that they all ran away. That was that was what I took. I wouldn't say that it's necessarily more or less racist than the 1933 one. I think it's just differently racist, Bob.
Equally racist. All right, yeah. Brad. Well, on that note, it's time for us to get into our whiskey for the day. You did not like this whiskey's counterpart last week, but in true, remake fashion, we're going to look at a more recent counterpart this week. Let's get into this SHÀNG whiskey. What do you say?
Let's get to it.
Timberland Pro knows that NASCAR starts long before the green flag waves. Because behind every race are the doers, the people who show up to the track early and stay long after the race ends. And that's who Timberland Pro is built for. Durable, comfortable, and professional. These boots perform as hard as you do, on the job and off it. Real work, real people, real craft. Visit TimberlandPro.com and discover products that help workers perform at their best.
All right, so this week we are checking out the second of these SHÀNG whiskey samples that we got. Folks, I would highly encourage you.
I think it's SHÀNG. Because they have
it's not SHÀNG, Brad.
They have they have the line over the A in the marketing.
No.
Yes,
no,
they do.
It's SHÀNG.
I'm pretty sure it's SHÄNG.
All right. You say SHÄNG.
Why
I'll
else?
say SHANG. Potato.
Once again, I don't think you're allowed to say them back to back.
So last week, we checked out the SHÀNG Dàn Yǎ whiskey, which we explained was made from baijiu that had been redistilled into a whiskey Now, this SHÀNG East Plus West takes that base and then blends it with a proprietary American whiskey that's made from red sorghum. So sorghum is the base spirit throughout these two married together whiskeys. Brad, this one comes in at a lower retail price than last week's. I think last week's was like $65 MSRP. This one is $45 MSRP. It comes in at 92 proof. And I think most importantly today, Brad, I'm not even so concerned about like comparing and contrasting to last week. I just want to see what you think of this one, because you pretty famously last week were not a fan.
I mean, I gave it like a 19 out of 50. That's like one of my lowest scores of all time. So
it's like about as good as the first hour of this movie was, right?
Okay.
All right, man, let's dive in. Let's talk about this a little bit. I'll be honest with you. So I'm sipping this live. Brad, you've already tried it. I don't know if I'm going to give like full nosing notes, but I just stuck my nose in it for the first time here. And this smells significantly less mature, younger, rough around the edges than last week's did. Now, you picked up some very funky notes on last week's nose. This one just smells like really unaged whiskey to me.
So this is the point where I actually liked this whiskey better because it tasted more like an unaged whiskey and less like whatever it was that I tasted last week. I mean,
that was a disclaimer we gave. Like, hey, we don't really like this, but we also don't know this category of spirit very well.
Absolutely.
So we're trying something that's completely new to our palates. And I think it's probably fair to give that disclaimer again this week.
Yeah, absolutely. This is something that is so far out of my wheelhouse. I'll just go on record and say, I don't think sauce forward Baijiu is for me. I'll put that out there. This one, for me, the nosing notes, it reminded me of like just straight fish sauce. There was some pear. Yep. It got into a little bit of spiciness, like a little bit of cinnamon, clove kind of vibe. I gave it a 4 out of 10 on the nose, a little bit better than what I gave last week's. I don't know, Bob. Where are you at on the nose here?
Man, I have the exact same notes as you, which pear is one that we never really get on whiskey. Pear is a very delicate note, but this smells like a ripe pear to me. And it does remind me of like, I don't know if you've ever had an Asian pear. It does remind me of Asian pear a little bit as well. There's fishiness on this. You found fishiness on last week's. It wasn't there for me. Fish sauce is a perfect note here. Fish sauce, which goes into like an overly sweet pear. And I think the combination of those two makes it almost smell like a rotting pear. I don't necessarily know if that's the case or if it's just the combination of those two. You do get a little bit of cinnamon for me. And then it's like all the notes you expect with like an unaged spirit, particularly like a really brand new kind of like maybe like a grain forward Irish whiskey. I don't love this, Brad, but again, I'm trying to keep an open mind a little bit here. I'm going to give this a 6 out of 10 on the nose.
Yeah, for me, the palate really reminded me of rubbing alcohol, of rotten apples again. It had like a little bit of a pomegranate kind of like tartness to it. The cinnamon started to come through as I drank a little more of it. There was enough stuff in there that I felt okay about that I gave it a 5.5 on the palate. It still is something that I was struggling once again, Bob.
I like this a lot actually on the palate, Brad, because it's this weird combination. Usually when we get baking spices, we're typically drinking bourbon. And so it's the combination of like cinnamon plus that sort of syrupy sweetness you get from the bourbon. This is like if you just took extract of clove, extract of nutmeg. There is no underlying sweetness whatsoever, but it's like, it does remind me of an Irish whiskey a lot. It's like Irish whiskey plus clove and nutmeg and maybe a little bit of cinnamon. And it's just the spicy parts of that experience. I kind of like this. This would be an interesting one to sip like around the holidays when I'm more used to having those flavors on my palate. I will say all that sort of fishy umami thing you got on the nose is not here on the palate. It does taste a little more like a traditional whiskey.
Mm-hmm.
It does feel a little more in my wheelhouse to talk about because of that. But I actually, apart from all that, I actually do like the way this tastes. I'm going to give it a 7.5 on the palate, Brad.
As I got into the finish, it kind of fell back into that umami world where it was pungent. We fell right back into the fish sauce. And what it left when it left for a long time afterwards was that kind of like medicinal bandage fish weirdness. I dropped back down to a 4 out of 10 on the finish. I'm really struggling with this.
Yeah, I don't know if there's just something, there's got to just be a difference in our taste buds a little bit, Brad. And we've joked before about that sort of like cilantro tastes like soap to some people kind of a thing. I'm just wondering if maybe you're a little more sensitive to some of these flavor compounds than I am, because it didn't come back for me, I guess is what I'm saying. And I actually got a little bit of sweetness on the finish. It kind of grew into a really nice, really thin Irish or Scotch whiskey on the finish with that really nice nutmeggy baking spice note. Once again, like I'll give it a 6.5 on the finish. I'm not going to say that this is like knocking my socks off. I do still think that this is a cool experiment that they're doing at Whiskey House of Kentucky. And for me, I do like this one better, but that's probably just because it tastes more like something I'm used to. And that brings us to balance. Now, I don't think this one is as well balanced as last week's was because it's not as consistent across the board. There were some notes on the nose here that didn't present on the palate or the finish. With that said, the palate into the finish was a really nice experience for me. I'll give it a 6 out of 10 again here, Brad.
Yeah, I'll give it a 6 out of 10 on balance. I liked this one better. I also think that for me, the flavors made more sense together. So that's why I'm a little bit higher here. I think when it comes to value, we're talking about a $45 bottle of whiskey. If you go into this knowing that you are up for a very unique experience, then I think $45 isn't a bad price to pay. If you had no idea what you were buying and you were just like, wow, SHÄNG, it's a cool bottle, I think I'd feel a little bit bad that you spent $45. I will give it a 6 out of 10 on value.
I think I'm going to be at a 6 as well. It's for a different reason than you, though, Brad. Last week, I felt like we got kind of the full experience of what that spirit was supposed to be. And when you take into consideration, like it's a handmade baijiu that is then redistilled and then shipped overseas and then aged in casks here, there's a lot of steps involved in that. And I thought that the $64 price tag made a lot of sense. What we're doing with this is we're just like cutting the amount of that goes in the bottle and we're replacing it with red sorghum whiskey that's made here, which may be very good whiskey, but it's definitely a less expensive bottle to produce. I do appreciate that it costs $20 less because I think they very easily could have just said, this one's $65 as well. But this one feels like a slightly lower value to me than last week's did, even though I like this spirit better. So I'm at a 6 as well here. And that's taking me out to a pretty respectable 32 out of 50. Brad, what are you coming out to?
I'm at a 25.5, which is 6.5 points higher than I was last week. So
yeah, that's much higher.
Tell me growth, baby.
That's taken us to an average of a 28.75 out of 50. Brad, I would recommend last week's because I think if you're going to experiment, you got to go all the way. And you got to try like whatever the logical extreme is. I think this is better. I also don't quite know who this is for as much as last week's was. And so like, if someone's offering it to you, try it. I don't know if I would recommend trying it at the bar or buying a bottle of it, Brad.
All I'm going to say is if we just clipped you saying, if you're going to experiment, you just got to go all in. And we could twist that.
We could get so much mileage out of that clip. yeah, man.
I think I'm with you, though. I think when it comes to baijiu whiskey, experimenting by going all the way is a great idea.
That's right. All right, Brad, I think that we have said enough about the SHÀNG or SHÀNG whiskey. It's time to get back into talking about King Kong.
Look, man, I'm just going to say a straight line over an A is called a macron. It indicates that the vowel should be pronounced as a long A, like mate or cake. So I'm just saying, they put the long line. That means it's an A. SHANG.
I want it to be Shang because it rhymes with Kong. Let's get back into it, Brad.
Let's get to it, Bob.
Bonjour, compadre. It's the
Priceline Negotiator.
How do I negotiate so many great travel deals? My greatest gadget, the Priceline app. It's got hotel deals, flight deals, rental car deals, all of those deals in a bundle. Deals, game day deals, concert trip deals. No one deals more deals than Priceline. Hold your horses, there's more. The app lets you filter hotels by neighborhood, vibe, star level, and amenities like pools and spas and beachfronts and... Wait, I'm not done. Stop cutting me off.
Priceline.
All right, everybody. That was SHANG whiskey. They're East versus West, which is fitting for this because it does feel like there's a little bit of an East versus West. You know, New York, the Indian Ocean. We've got a battle going on here.
So you said this last week too. Is it actually established anywhere that they are going to the Indian Ocean? I always assumed they were going towards Africa, where the gorillas are. And since they're leaving from New York Harbor, that they were going east in their expedition.
I mean, the way that they talked about it was that it was near like Singapore, and they talk about it throughout that it's in that region. I don't remember what they say in the 1933 one, but it also indicated to my geographic brain that they were like south of India.
In the 1933 version.
What did they say?
They say there's things on that island that no white man has ever seen.
You hate women.
When you quote it, you have to say white as well.
White.
That's the rule. Yes. Brad, on that note, last week was the first time that you got me this season.
That's right.
In our next segment, which is our game called 2 Facts and a Falsehood.
Brad is gonna try to stump you, Bob. 2 are right and 1 is wrong. 2 facts and a falsehood.
2 Facts and a Falsehood is the part of the show where Brad presents me with 3 items as fact about the making of this movie, one of which is a complete lie. Now, as I said, I was 3-0 going into last week. Brad tripped me up. I don't remember what the fact was, Brad, but it was you wrote a good one last week. They were 3 pretty damn good ones.
I appreciate it, man. I actually wrote the exact same 3 facts for this week's King Kong, so we'll see.
I don't remember any of it. All right, man, let's do it.
All right, fact number 1. The scene where Denham, Driscoll, and the crew fall into a pit filled with giant bugs is a reference to the scene in the original King Kong, just in case you didn't know, from 1933, where the crew fell into a pit and were devoured by a giant spider, a giant crab, and a tentacle bug, and a giant lizard. But the scene was cut after many members of preview audiences ran out of the theater in horror during the scene. And, fun fact, the scene has never been found. Fact number 2. In 2005's King Kong, the titular gorilla is seen killing 33 people throughout the course of the film, which was a nod to the original film being made in 1933. Fact number 3, Sir Peter Jackson was paid $20 million to direct this film, the highest salary ever paid to a film director in advance of production. Sir Christopher Nolan would later receive the same salary for directing Dunkirk in 2017.
All right, you ready?
I'm ready.
Number 2 is the falsehood, locking it in, final answer. I have no other reasoning for it. It just sounds fishy to me.
Sounds fishy to you.
The end. Yeah.
That's it?
Yeah.
Well,
this
Bob,
is the shortest one we've ever done. Am I right or wrong? I've got no conversation for you.
The fish sauce has sharpened your palate, and you have smelled out the falsehood.
Hell yeah.
He
Hell yeah.
killed 48 people in the original and 49 in the 2005.
Peter Jackson was like, not enough. Do one more.
I'm not going to let those 1933 guys beat me.
I did appreciate in the like Times Square sequence as he's picking up like fake Anderos and then tossing them. If you listen really closely to the sound mix, you can hear them like, well, no, the women in particular, they like gently hit snow. You just hear like, pff. And I'm like, oh, maybe they're not dead. I don't know.
Dude, there was one guy that he threw and like they sound designed his body like cracking in the background.
Yes, they did, my friend.
Dang. One of the things I found fascinating.
Good.
One of the things I found fascinating was that Andy Serkis insisted on him being an herbivore because that's what actual silverback gorillas are not carnivores. And yet they still had the one moment when they're in the cove as they're about to get on the boats where he grabs the guy and rips his head off.
He just grenades him. Yeah.
Because that was the only way 1933 Kong could kill people.
Did you also catch the sly Ozzy Osbourne reference when all the bats are flying at Kong and he takes the one bat and bites its head off and then throws it to the side?
That's an Ozzy Osbourne reference?
Yeah, it's like a rock and roll legend that Ozzy was so stoned one day. For some reason, like a bat flew into the recording room. And he bit the head off of the bat. And then like there's pictures of him with like blood on his face and stuff. Yeah, dude. Rock and roll, baby.
And he didn't get rabies.
No, I mean, probably. But like, he was getting shots for all kinds of stuff back then. And on that note, it's time to talk about the last 2 hours of this movie, Brad, because I do think they are perfect. I mean, we can litigate some of the CGI in this movie. But I will say that like every dollar that mattered in the CGI went to Kong.
Yes.
And so I can forgive some of the shoddiness of early in the movie. Some of the green screen work is really bad. I think that like the actual CGI on like the dinosaurs is really good. But the design of some of them is a little bit like cheesy. Like just they look bad.
Yeah.
And so like at the end of the day, there's maybe 5 shots in this movie that actually feature Kong that I made mental note of, like, that looks a little video gamey to me. And every other shot, there's probably 500 shots of King Kong in this movie, is like immaculately produced computer graphics.
Dude.
And so it's really easy to forgive the like, oh yeah, there are parts of this movie that look 20 years old.
Yeah.
When the stuff that matters still holds up so well.
Absolutely. Like when the brontosauri are like stampeding and they're all like running underneath their legs and stuff, like you can kind of tell it's not great. It feels almost like Hugh Jackman like brushing a fake sheep. Like it's like, it's not perfect. However, I know this question has been beaten to death like a dead horse on the internet. How was CG so good 20 years ago compared to what we have nowadays? Because watching this movie, I was utterly blown away, not just by Kong, but like, bro, when they fall in that bug pit, that is one of the most terrifying things I've ever watched. Now, granted, I'm not a horror movie guy, but holy crap.
No, that sequence is like, it's a brilliant it might be like pound for pound the best sequence in the movie because it's like sneaky how good it is.
Yes.
Every other part of this movie has this brilliant theatrical score by Howard Shore over it. And it's an old school adventure movie score, which is awesome.
Yep.
And in that sequence, for a large part of it, there's no soundtrack and there's just the sound of like pitter patter echoing off the walls
and like chittering.
And then when the score does come in, it's this really somber like adagio for strings. Like it looks like you're watching like the end of a Vietnam movie. Like it's just as Andy Serkis gets devoured by those things, that is like one of the more disturbing deaths I've ever seen put to screen. It is like, it's horrifying.
Absolutely.
There's no escape from that. It creeps me out, man.
He did such a great job of like creating a completely untenable, unwinnable situation that I, as the viewer who have seen it before, was like, there's no way they're getting out of this. My heart was freaking pounding. And then and then you get them like shooting a gun. I'm sorry. The one piece of that whole thing is when the little ship rat is like shooting his gun at Jack Driscoll and shooting off all the grasshopper things that are eating him alive. And doesn't
not looking and just going like this.
And then he's finally like, hold still. And Jack Driscoll has it like eating his face. And he's like, I am holding still. It's wild, dude.
What a movie. What a picture.
What a movie. Speaking of what a picture, one of the most famous scenes from the original, the T-Rex fight, Peter Jackson was like, I'm not going to mess around with one T-Rex. I'm bringing in two. And you know what? Two's not enough, baby. Let's add a third. What an incredible, like one of the greatest monster fight scenes.
I mean, I suspect that part of the reason the dinosaurs in this movie look the way they do is because, like, you can't make them look too much like Jurassic Park because Spielberg's lawyers will be on the phone immediately. And so they have to make them look a little more cartoony. And so I hate the design of the T-Rexes.
Oh, really?
Like the facial design. They just look a little like Land of the Lost to me, and I don't like that.
Sure, but
I do like how they actually behave more like large velociraptors.
Yes.
They're not as like hulking. It's the way they stand. Really interesting kind of characterization that he gives to those. And I will say, like, you mentioned this with the Brontosaurus thing too. This might be one of the best usages of how to light CGI. They understand, because in that sequence where they're running through that like canyon and through the Brontosaurus legs and they're getting chased by the raptors, there's really, really harsh midday light coming in. And they do such a good job of understanding how light bounces off of the rocks and the shadow and the skin of the Brontosauruses. And it's like, yeah, like they look kind of fake, but the light is behaving in a way that they don't typically give that kind of attention. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was, it actually worked to its benefit in that T-Rex sequence when they all fall down into that canyon and they're covered in the vines.
Mm-hmm.
And because of the way that they're playing with shadow in that kind of canyon, or that, what do we call that, cliff, when she's swinging back and forth and you see that one T-Rex kind of perk up and start moving himself towards her, it's such a brilliant sequence, man. Like, it's like, truly, it's like Spielbergian stuff. It's so good.
And I think that's, for me, the overarching success of this movie is that, yes, there are certain moments that you're like, I've seen Lord of the Rings. I know who's directing this. But so much of this movie reads just like a perfect action adventure masterpiece that you wouldn't necessarily know who is shooting it. Like, he does such an excellent job with so many of the vistas in the movie. It feels like a David Lean, like just this massive vista, and you're experiencing nature and beauty. But he also does action scenes as if he is Spielberg. He does romance scenes, and the way he shoots Naomi Watts' eyes, like, we haven't talked about Naomi Watts at all. Bob, she's a revelation in this movie.
Once they stop making her have dialogue in the first part of the movie, where she's like, "Oh shucks, I'm down on my luck," that part didn't work for me at all. Once we get to the island and then she has to give a fake CGI character a heart, the movie hangs on her and she knocks it out of the park, man.
And this is something I realized: if you took every single word and put it into like a pie chart of when it gets spoken in the movie based on the 3 acts, probably 70% of the script gets spoken in the first hour of the movie.
Yes.
The rest of the movie Peter Jackson has the wisdom to allow the island to speak for itself. And he doesn't force anything. He doesn't make the characters talk too much. He allows it to be just this wild, untamed adventure.
Well, and I think the filmmaking kind of reflects that. Even like the camera work in the movie. So much of what I disliked was in the first hour of this movie with that crappy like slow-mo stuff that he does. But then some of my least favorite CG is early in the island sequence. You get a bunch of these shots of they'll hear like a roar from off in the distance, and you get that sort of like weightless CGI camera that tracks all the way up from the harbor, up over the wall, up into the woods, and it's no real camera could do that. And so it immediately looks like a fake shot. And you were talking about the vistas in this movie. Once you get to Kong's sort of POV, everything on the island then becomes filmed from that sort of fixed perspective. So when he takes Naomi Watts up on the cliff and they're looking out over the vista, it's there with them. It's no longer trying to move over the whole landscape. And I think that once he allows the visuals to speak for themselves and the movie to take a breath and settle down, it's almost ironic and like a reversal of what you would expect that the first hour seems so bogged down because he's trying to do so much in that first hour. And the irony is that when the movie actually lets these characters have some breathing room, it moves so much better.
Absolutely. And I think that if you bring this movie down from 3 hours, like I said earlier, to 2.5, I think it's a perfect movie. I walked into this remembering that I liked it and remembering that it didn't quite receive the critical reception that you would imagine post Lord of the Rings Peter Jackson would get. I finished this and was like, this is one of my favorite action movies I've seen in a really long time. And then I go on Roger@Ebert.com. He gave this thing a 4 out of 4 and said it is absolutely one of the best movies of 2005. And everything he wrote, I was just like, I can say with full confidence that I think this is a stunning accomplishment in cinematic history.
I made some pretty bold claims to you off air, and I think I'll reiterate one of them now because I finally finished the movie. I think personally this might be Andy Serkis's greatest achievement as a motion artist.
Yeah.
I think that Gollum is obviously what he's going to be remembered for, and that was such a groundbreaking landmark character. Gollum is a fantastical creature, right? Like we really have no reference point for what a Gollum should be. We have a reference point for what a silverback gorilla is supposed to be.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that they got a dude to put on a motion capture suit and give a performance that made him both a believable gorilla and to humanize that gorilla through subtle facial expressions. It's the combination of the amazing CGI artists, but also Andy Serkis. Like, this performance is unbelievable, Brad.
It is absolutely stunning. Also the fact that he got to like play 2 roles in the movie, I think is great.
Yeah.
But him as King Kong, it's partially the eyes. Like, because of his mocap performance, you get eyes that feel real and believable. And if you don't have that, you don't have a relatable story. You don't feel bad.
That's always
when he
like
dies.
CGI characters. It's always the eyes. They have never figured out how to properly light them, how to make them move in ways that don't look uncanny valley.
Mm-hmm. But I think that this is the only time they've done it well. I would say, because Andy Serkis also did Rise of the Planet of the Apes, right?
Oh yeah, that's true.
I was gonna say that's the
He's
only
pretty damn good. Yeah,
that's the only other time I can think of that eyes were done well for an animal in a CG environment. And it's like, I'm watching Kong and I'm like, oh yeah, this is where Rise of the Planet of the Apes came from. Like, you don't have a reintroduction of the Planet of the Apes IP if you don't have 2005's King Kong.
Yep. I also really loved what they did, obviously with the character of Kong, but they made him as empathetic or as sympathetic of a character as they needed to. Without it, it never felt forced and it never felt overly manipulative to me. And part of that is because they always remember this is an animal who only has so much maturity in him. Even though Kong is like an older version of Kong. He's all scarred up. But in those early scenes where Ann Darrow first rejects him, he gets really petty and petulant and he starts flipping stuff over. And then, one of those rocks falls on him and then he's embarrassed. And, he has the mentality of a child. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what initially draws her to him. But they never make Kong do something like learn how to sign I love you, and it doesn't get overboard. Ultimately, it's not even necessarily just a love story that I'm attracted to this woman, whatever. It's that they do such a good job of portraying Kong as a solitary figure that has nobody not just to share time with, but there's no one that can understand me. There's no one that I can share anything with. And so when she teaches him how to sign, to her, how to sign beautiful, it's his capacity for recognizing beauty that both sets him apart in this movie and, crucially, makes the ending line of this movie work so much better than it did in 1933. Because this shitbag, Jack Black, it finally dawns on him that yes, beauty killed the beast, but literally it did. And not just that it's not Fay Wray, it's not Ann Darrow that killed the beast. It was the fact that he had a capacity for recognizing beauty, for protecting beauty, for wanting to hold on to and share beauty. And that was his downfall. That was his fate in a world that discards that. I thought that it really expanded that concept in such a better way than the 33 version.
And the idea of him being a isolated, solitary creature is reinforced by the island that he is on. Nothing else on the island has a sense of intelligence about it. They all act purely on instinct. And I think that's what the reason you have to spend so much time on the island almost being killed is that you realize the centipedes and the Tyrannosaurus Rexes and everything acts without any intelligence. And yet the comparison at the end of the film is Kong was able to survive that level of unintelligence. He wasn't able to survive human levels of unintelligence. And that's the big juxtaposition that you're oh, dang, bro.
I'm just realizing now too, obviously Kong's the only Kong. And so Kong has no Kong to share his Kongness with, right? But listen, man, everyone needs a Kong. Every other creature on that island, Peter Jackson portrays in 2s or 3s.
Yep.
There's no other creature that they encounter. Even the bugs, when she's inside the log and the bug crawls on her, there's a second one.
Yep.
Every other creature has its pair, except for Kong.
And I don't know if you notice when Driscoll is climbing up to rescue her from the mountaintop, and there's all the vampire bats, which are terrifying.
Oh yeah.
There's multiple skulls of other Kongs. And for me, the implication is he's the last of his kind. They have died out. He is alone. And you're right. I didn't realize it either. But yeah, every single other threat on the island, there are multiples of them. And he is totally alone until she sees him and treats him with some level of respect and communicates with him. And they're inseparable. It's the moment that she does her little vaudeville routine to entertain him that he recognizes oh, we can benefit each other. And from there on out, he is her fiercest protector. And you find yourself sobbing as he falls off the Empire State Building.
I loved the ways that Jackson expanded the New York scenes as well. Both the destruction inside the theater, which is great, and him climbing up onto the mezzanine, that's awesome.
Dude.
But, there's 2 moments in particular that I always remember, and it's when she first comes back to him and she walks out of the fog, and then they cut to them walking off together, and they're walking down a completely silent street.
Bro.
And it's just piano and the street lights are out. And it's like he's trying to like not harm anything as he goes down the street. And then they come into Central Park and he's sliding around on the ice. And the score is gorgeous. And it's this moment of respite. As an audience member, you know this is going to end badly.
Yep.
And it's almost torturous for Jackson to do this to us because it makes it hurt even worse. But you also need to know that this thing had one more moment of happiness and peace. And then the way that they end it, the way that they're interrupted by the army firing missiles at him, like it's brilliant. It's just a brilliant sequence.
And there's like so many, there's like things that he's calling back to. Like it feels like Bambi when Bambi's like slipping on the ice. It feels a little bit like The Bishop's Wife when Cary Grant is taking her ice skating and they're having a fun time together. Like there's so many things that he's calling back to. I found myself wondering, like you know how they talk about there's all the different universes out there. There's the World War II cinematic universe and so on.
Yep.
I feel like there's a Central Park cinematic universe. Like you got Buddy the Elf helping Santa Claus.
Buddy the Elf.
You've got
Macaulay
Kevin and Home
Culkin's
Alone
in there.
2.
Yep.
Yeah, like I just want to see the Central Park cinematic universe. And I think that Kong deserves a spot on the Mount Rushmore of Central Park scenes. It's such a great freaking scene, dude.
But one thing I found out, we didn't talk about this last week. You know, the Empire State Building was newly erected when the 33 version came out. And it becomes an iconic building because of King Kong in a lot of ways. And one thing that I read online, I wish that I had time to like go check and make sure that there was like 3 or 4 things to back this up. But I read like a fact that it was struggling. The Empire State Building was struggling so bad that it had like 75% vacancy in the building. And the joke was that it was being called the Empty State Building until King Kong came out. And then it was such a popular, iconic building that it basically cemented this building in the American sort of psyche and iconography forever.
Oh, it absolutely is. Like you talked earlier about this story being cemented. If there's anything alongside the story of King Kong that is like permanently emblazoned in the American consciousness, it is the Empire State Building. Also, fun fact that I learned as I did research, and I don't give a rip if it had 3 or 4 facts behind it. It took them longer to render the CG Empire State Building than it did to actually build the Empire State Building. It took them
That's wild, dude.
more than 18 months to fully build out the rendered version of this for the movie, which once again, we wonder why CG was better back then.
There you go.
That's it.
You know, I do think if I wanted to get more nerdy, there's got to be something there with that sort of impulse in 1933 to have him climb the Empire State. Like, what does that say about this is our biggest monument? He's climbing this. We shoot him off of it. There's got to be something there. I also think that, like, part of the reason King Kong is such a great story in the American mythos is that it allows us to also ask silly questions like, what if a giant monkey fought a dinosaur? Like there really are just points. Like in the original, when the T-Rex comes up, you're kind of like, oh shit. Like what's gonna happen here?
Yep.
It asks the big questions, is all I'm saying, Brad.
Absolutely. It's one of those things where, like, when your wife asks you what you're thinking about and you say nothing, it's like, really in my mind, I'm wondering if a mutant giant gorilla could defeat a T-Rex. That's what I'm actually thinking about when I say nothing.
It turns out quite easily.
Yeah. Dude, the moment when he takes the jaw after he's killed him and he's like playing with it.
Yep.
Chef's kiss.
I'm so glad that they carried that over from the 33 too. That's the best part of that whole sequence.
And I love so many points of this movie. I will say, I think that watching 2005's King Kong is greatly enhanced by having recently watched 1933's. I don't know if you felt that way. I find myself at multiple points being like Leo pointing at the screen like, oh, wow, he did that. And it was like in a slightly new way. Even you talked about bringing Bruce, Kyle Chandler onto the show, onto the movie. The fact that they were doing the dialogue where he says
from the
original and they're filming it for Denham's movie, like the inception moment of that was just perfect. And I found myself being like giddy about like, oh, I just saw that and now he's doing it here and I get it. Watch the 1933 version. It's an hour and a half. And then watch this one. It's only 3 hours.
I think that's, it definitely also continues to make 33 rise in my estimation. Not that I'm like, oh, it's so much better than 2005, but like so often when you watch old movies, people will say something like it was good for its time or like it holds up really well for being 90 years old. And if we're just talking about the effects of 33, sure. I've been blown away by how much that movie has set the template for everything that came after it. And I think this is just confirmation of that.
So I'm curious for you. I want you to start thinking about this. What is something that you think 33 did better than 2005? And I have my answer. I think that the one thing that 33 did far and away better than 2005 is the moment when Kong breaks through the gate.
Yep. Oh, that too.
Like when in the 33, when he breaks open the gate, it gives it a moment to sit and you just see his whole body and face coming through. And it's the biggest he looks in the entire movie.
Yeah.
The 2005 version just complete, like he just blasts through the gate and then keeps going. And you're like,
yep.
Having just watched the 1933, I was like getting jacked up. I was like, all right, he's about to break through the gate. It already happened. He's already doing something else now. Oh.
Right. So mine would be on the other end of the movie from that. The build up to Kong's first like emergence in the 33 version. And it's everything from like her getting abducted off the boat because it has this eerie sort of like silence that's happening through the whole evening. And in this version, everything's obscured by the fact that it's this rainstorm. You've got these CGI guys jumping onto the boat. It looks terrible. And then once they abduct her, it's portrayed as like this sort of like fever dream, chaotic, like where are we going? What are we doing? Yeah. Boom, you're tied up. Here's Kong. Whereas in the 33 version, it's much more drawn out. Like you're hoping that the guys can get to the island and rescue her. And you're watching her get tied up and look out into the wilderness and wonder what's happening. And they're calling for Kong, one at a time. And it really built the suspense, I thought, way better than this version did.
Yeah, I would agree with that wholeheartely. They kind of rush her out there and then he takes her and then boom, she's gone.
All right, Brad, I think let's go reverse order today. Let's give final scores on this version of King Kong, and then we'll do Let's Make It a Double.
All right.
I'm really waffling back and forth between an 8.5 and a 9 here. I think like the last 2 hours of this movie are so good that they almost make you forget how bad that first hour is. I legitimately, if the whole movie was as bad as the first hour, it'd be like a 4 out of 10 for me, Brad. It was really, really bad.
It's not that bad.
It's really bad.
If there's anything I need to do to convince people to watch this movie again, it's to remind them that the first hour of this movie is not perfect. It's pretty good. It's entertaining. It's
a
cinema.
glowing endorsement.
Yeah.
I'm gonna come out to an 8.5 with the caveat that it's like 8.5 asterisk that I love like a 9.5.
Sure.
Do you know what I mean? Sometimes you just have movies that you're like, I get it. It's flawed. Yep. It's like a 9.5 out of 10 for me. You know?
Yeah. I am on the opposite end. I don't see many flaws in this movie. They are there. Like it drags on in points and not just drags on in like one scene that lasts for 9 minutes and it should have been 2. It's like there's a lot of scenes where there's like 7 extra seconds that I found myself going like, you didn't need to leave the camera going quite that long. And that happens for almost every scene in the movie. But when I put all the parts together, I don't mind any of those extra 7 seconds. Like, I'm glad that I sat down and watched this entire film. every bit of the 3 hours that it is. I'm at a 9.5 out of 10, Bob. It's not a perfect movie, but it is daggone close for me.
Do you know why I love this? We're flip-flopping scores from last week. I gave 33 a 9.5. You gave it an 8.5. I guess the really simplistic way to ask this question is like, do you think 2005 is better than 1933?
Yes.
I think the more complicated question... go ahead. I
would say mostly just because Jackson deepens all of the characters, but he especially deepens Kong. And I think that makes for a better film.
If only one of the two can go in the time capsule, which one goes in?
That's the important pieces of cinema time capsule. Is that the name of it?
Yes. Things we want to survive the nuclear holocaust. One of these two movies can go in. I think it's got to be 33. You get the template with 33. As much as I love the way 2005 ends, it rips my heart out, dude.
The only reason I would say 2005 is because A, it's a great story. You get the template still. And B, I think it's more important to see how good CGI could be. And to see an early CGI film like that, this isn't very fun. This is 2005, Bob. Toy Story came out 8 years
95.
before this? 10 years before
95,
this.
yeah.
It is mind-boggling how good this CG is, and I think it's important to see that technical piece of craft. So I think I am going to say the 2005.
All right, now the all-important question, Brad, and it'll come to you first. Let me cue up our jingle for our last segment of the day. Let's make it a double.
We're near the end of the episode, so thanks for listening to the Film and Whiskey Show. Let's pair another film with this one, even if it's a struggle. It's our final segment of the day, now let's make it a double.
Let's Make It a Double is the part of the show where we pick a movie to pair up with this one to make the perfect double feature. Brad, since you have already picked this movie for us to watch this week, you get to just do this fun exercise with no obligation. What would you pair 2005's King Kong with?
Honestly, Bob, I'm looking this up right now. Isn't there a King Kong from the 70s?
The 70s with Jeff Bridges. It is awful.
I'm going to pair King Kong with King Kong and King Kong. Just because I can.
Oh, man. I thought of a list of a few movies. This is me doing the exercise, not the movie I'm going to pick.
Yes.
If you want some more Naomi Watts in your life, she made a movie in 2012 called The Impossible, which is based on a true story about a family that was vacationing, I think, in the Philippines, and they got hit by the tsunami on their resort. And it is one of the most realistically filmed disaster sequences I've ever seen in a movie. And then the whole rest of the movie is her and Tom Holland, who plays her son, are trying to find Ewan McGregor and whoever their other kid is played by and reunite their family in the chaos after a tsunami. It is a brilliant movie, dude. Yeah, super good. I think also the very obvious one here is Beauty and the Beast. It's referenced in both movies. And I think they really draw it out more here, that this kind of petulant creature learns to love, ultimately gets killed by Gaston at the end of the movie. It's the parallels are there. Honestly, this time I kept thinking to myself, man, what does this remind me of? It's this, these two people or these two figures are trapped and they can't find anywhere to be. And somewhere there has to be a place for them. And then I was like, oh my gosh, this movie is West Side Story. This would be such a good pairing with the 1961 West Side Story as well. Obviously, Brad, can't pair it with any of those movies because we've watched two of them already. I said last week that I was going to be between the 1999 Brendan Fraser Mummy and the 1931 Frankenstein. I think we have to go Frankenstein here. I think we have to go back to classic horror. Also, a figure that is tragic. This is a tragic horror trope story of a figure that earns your sympathy that doesn't deserve its fate. I think the real question, Brad, I know what you're going to say, but they make Frankenstein in, I think, 31, and then a couple years later, they make The Bride of Frankenstein, which is its sequel, which a lot of people think is better than the original. And it continues to deepen the character of Frankenstein and make him a much more sympathetic figure. Now, Frankenstein, which we are for sure going to watch next week, this is my pick, is 70 minutes long.
Let's go.
The Bride of Frankenstein is like 80 minutes long. So I'm gonna put the ball in your court here. We could do a first time ever. Let's
Double
watch
feature.
both movies, because we could watch both movies in under 2.5 hours.
Which is less.
And then kind of, I mean, we could still talk about Frankenstein and then bring in like the context of Bride of Frankenstein. I almost want to see what that would be like, but I will leave it to you, Brad. What would you like to do?
This is the season of unlimited possibilities.
Boom.
Why wouldn't we watch 2 films for a 1 film episode review? I mean,
we're doing it, folks.
It was like back in season 5 that I made you watch an episode of television for an episode of the Film and Whiskey podcast.
You sure did, man. All right. Be it decreed. Next week, we're watching Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein. I can't freaking wait for that. But before we get there, folks, we want to know what you think of the 2005 film King Kong. Is it better than the original? Is it as good as you remember it being? You can find us and let us know on any of our social media accounts: Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, TikTok, or YouTube at Film Whiskey.
Or if you want to join the conversation, we have a Discord channel where we love to talk movies, whiskey, all sorts of other things. If you want to join the conversation, you can find a link at the end of every single one of our show notes.
We'll be back next week with a double feature. Let's make it a double of Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein. But until then, I'm Bob Book.
I'm Brad G.
And we'll see you next time.
Athletic Brewing Company crafts award-winning non-alcoholic beers for those who want to be part of every round. With over 185 flavor awards, they're exceptional NA beers that fit your lifestyle and any social occasion. Summer's full of good times, and Athletic fits right in. Go to athleticbrewing.com to have brews delivered to your door, or find them at a bar, restaurant, or store near you. Near beer. Athletic Brewing Company. Fit for all times.
I'm Glenn Washington, host of Snap Judgment, the award-winning storytelling podcast from KQED. Every week, Snap deals a new card, like the girl whose sister was a monkey, or the man who lived in the woods for 30 years, or even the woman who snuck her lover out of prison in a dog crate. Pick a card, any card. Tap to listen now to Snap Judgment from KQED on Spotify.